So now I would like to request our dear Professor Wolfgang Maening from the University of Hamburg. He brings the perspective. Please have a seat. He brings the perspective of what are the determinants of hosting an Olympic Games, what are the areas where we need to prepare for Olympics, what are the objective parameters which India should mark, measure, and then take a decision when it comes to organizing a mega event or so to say Olympic Games. He is an economist, he is a professor of economics, he himself is an Olympian and a decorated one because he has won medals for Germany, I would say world champion in rowing, and turned into a academician, researcher who understands the Olympic, the athlete side of it, and then going to the economy side of it. And I think no one would be better justify this particular presentation, which is going to open our mind in terms of preparing a city, a country for the Olympic Games. So I leave the floor with Professor Wolfgang Maening. Give him a big round of applause.
Yeah, thank you for the very kind introduction. I would like to add, I am the hindrance between you and your lunch. Sorry for that. I will try to speed up as much as I can. Utsav told me, you know, don't worry too much. You can use the presentation of last year. And I thought, well, that's a good idea, you know. Nice travel to wonderful India, meeting nice people, wonderful food, and not having much work. Copy-paste, that's the dream of every academic. So I went through the presentation of last year, and indeed I thought, no, at least 2/3 of the slides have to be revised. So what happened? What were the most important changes in the last year? Now India is in the continuous dialogue with the IOC, which changes a lot of things for the Indian idea to host the Olympic Games. Then we have a new IOC president, Ms. Kirsty Coventry, with new ideas, and you will be affected by it. Then we had a referendum in Bavaria. Munich is going to apply probably for Germany, and it's an astonishing referendum. I will tell you about it. Then we had significant progress of India in the fight against doping and corruption. I've been discussing it a lot with you in the breaks. And I think I also, at least me, I had a lot of insights from the other presentations of my friends from sports and my colleagues from academics. So they also influenced me in changing my slides. So one slide is the same as last year. That's the structure of the discussion which I proposed to you. So starting with the bid situation, explaining a bit about the bid process, elaborating the determinants of a success for becoming an Olympic host and the Indian strategy, and then summarizing and also declaring some missing issues. So first of all, that's the oversight of the countries or the cities which, according to not official information, the IOC doesn't have a web page with these are the cities with which we are in a continuous dialogue. So you have to rely on the internet, on artificial intelligence with all its limits. So what I can see is there is India with Ahmedabad, there's Qatar with Doha, there is Turkey with Istanbul, there is South Africa, not yet decided with which city, they even don't say between which cities they are going to decide, and there's Germany with else Munich, or Cologne, or Hamburg, or Berlin. This will be decided in September this year. So what is outstanding here is the Indian position in 2 dimensions at least. It's the size of the population. It's larger than all the other applicants together. And by the average growth rates. It's significantly higher than, for example, in Germany, but also in South Africa. What is also interesting is, might be interesting for you, yes, Germany is in the continuous dialogue with the IOC for the games from 36 to 44, but indeed Germany is not so much interested in the games of 36. This is because we had the Olympic Games of 1936, the Hitler Games and Nazi Games, and many people in Germany think it's not a good idea to have a new Games 100 years after the Nazi Games. I don't know whether it's a strong argument in the international Olympic family, but the Germans feel like that would be better to go later, 40 or 44. The next thing which is interesting in my view is these are very few bidders. I mean, we speak about the future 3 Olympic Summer Games, and we have 4 to 5 applicants. Indeed, my friends from South Africa, I'm not sure whether they will really come up because they have internal problems and they're really undecided which city they could go. And maybe they come later, but I'm a bit skeptical about it. And then we have new bidders. You will see a slide, some slides later, where you see the applicant situation in earlier Olympic Games. They were all experienced Olympic hosts. They have had the Olympic Games beforehand, sometimes even several times. So this time it's different because most of the bidders are new bidders who never had the Olympic Games beforehand, who are, may I say, a bit less experienced in it. With the exception of Germany, but even in Germany, our last Olympic Games had been in 1972, so that's a lifetime or more than a lifetime of that, and indeed I don't know anyone of the organizers of that time who is still alive in Germany. Well, concerning the experience with Olympics, I'd like to take a side remark. I know that India knows that you must get your experience by organizing additional international events. You are on your way. But here I'm not only, as Utzaf mentioned, not only as an economist or an academic, but also a bit as a representative of the athletes and of the international Olympic family. And I can only urge you to go ahead, to even have more, put more power into receiving, applying to international Olympic sports events. This is not a slide which tries to market for Germany. It's just to show you that maybe international sports and the Olympic sports are Euro-centered, and of course, European nations, North American nations might have an advantage in organizing such events, and you are in a competition, so Germany has a lot of experience, but is also building up a lot of, let's say, friendship and trust with other federations, and you are in competition, so please go ahead. Organize even more events than you have in plan right now. So let me take a step back to what has been the selection process until recently, because there are insights which are worth discussing also in that respect, with a new selection process. In the earlier periods, you had a process where you had first applicant cities, and to name a number, normally for Summer Olympic Games, we had something like 10 applicant cities for each of the Olympics, the Summer Olympics. And then the IOC, because its selection process is a bit complicated, I will come to that, reduced it to something like 4 or 5 so-called candidate cities. And then the candidate cities showed up at the IOC General Assembly, and even the state presidents came and presented and pushed forward for their application. And what happened is there had been too many losers, and prominent people lost maybe even face. So have a look here, New York, maybe the city of the cities. They lost in the second round for the Games of 2012. And even worse, Chicago. So Barack Obama, Nobel Prize winner for peace, one of the big hopes of America, came to the IOC General Assembly and was voted out in the first round. This was like a hit. Not only for him, it was a hit for the United States. It was a disaster. No? So it produced a lot of losers, and it gave bad sentiment for the Olympic movement. Then we had something which is in the political area, which is a bit strange, it's inconsistency, and we economists call it strategic voting. So have a look, for example, to Istanbul. In the first round for the Olympic Games of 2008, they had 17 votes. Osaka, Japan, flew out of the competition. They had only 6 votes. So you would expect that in the second round, Istanbul would have at least 17 votes, maybe even some of the 6 votes in addition. But what happened in the next round, Istanbul had 9 votes. So obviously, there was some strategic voting in the first round, and it lessened a bit to make sure that Istanbul is not going to be excluded in the first round. And the same happened very many times. It's the same with New York. In the first round, more votes than in the second round. And the same with Tokyo. That's a bit of inconsistency, strategic voting, and indeed we don't like it. Or in general, in elections, you don't like if people vote not in the favor of their real wishes, but strategically. And the next issue, which was a severe case in the last selection processes, very, very high bidding costs. Because international experts, international consultants had been very, very expensive. So the Tokyo bid is said to have cost 150 million US dollars. And there was an acceleration. The bidding process became more and more expensive. It was not only Tokyo had high costs. The other three applicants also had high costs. So there was a lot of waste of money because in the end, only one of the cities got the games. By the way, I would like to, I know that you are very ambitious with 2036, and you will see that I'm very optimistic for India, but even now I dare to say that many of the successful bidders didn't succeed in the first round. Even Paris didn't succeed in the first round. Tokyo didn't succeed in the first round. Prominent Olympic cities. No? Istanbul is a very experienced bidder. I think they run up now for the 6th time. The world record holder in running up for the Olympic Games is Detroit. They ran up 7 times. Never got it. But what you see here, it might be useful to go ahead and maybe not to be elected, but try it again. So that's the lecture for Germany. We also applied several times, and we are going ahead, and we don't like to lose, of course, but we know that maybe in the next step we have a larger chance because we had the experience of being there. But anyway, this slide should not end before saying that Istanbul is indeed a dangerous competitor to everyone in the race because they are very experienced with their bids. Okay, so the IOC, the Olympic family, saw that competition, which showed down, and 4 to 5 of them got some hits. Go out, you are not good enough, someone better, doesn't work anymore. Too many losers. So they changed the process. And the process now, you are in a continuous dialogue, and it's a real dialogue. The IOC means it honestly. So they don't want to have an application and then maybe to throw out India. No one wants to throw out India. We are happy that you are here. We are happy that you apply. But we want to discuss it, or the IOC Future Host Commission wants to discuss it. They want to hear your ideas and give you their comments. It should be a discussion, a real discussion. In the end, the hope is that India comes up with a structured bid that the IOC will say, that's a good idea. So it's a much more diplomatic way of deciding. It's a much more friendly way of deciding. And I think to a large extent it's also a more efficient one. So instead of being the judge, which the IOC had been beforehand, the IOC and the IOC Future Host Commission now is your partner in forming a sustainable and a real good application for the Olympic Games. Okay, so now you are in the phase of discussion, of the discussion with the IOC, and let's have a look what they think is important in that part of the discussion of the application. They will check for the country background and the political context. They will check for human development and human rights. They will check for environment and social economic context. And they will check for many, many other criteria in the discussion. Okay? And the helping partners of the discussion for your applications is the Future Host Commission. And just have a look to the names. I will come back to the names and their background because there's an interesting message behind the people who are in the IOC Future Host Commission. These are your discussing partners there, and their staff are your discussion partners. And again, they are the helpers to form an application which is world class. And afterwards, when you go into the targeted dialogue, then it becomes really severe. Then you are the one who is favored, or even the only one with which the IOC wants to discuss, for example, for the year 2036. So then we are in a position of monopoly. You didn't get the games, even not then, because then starts a really very detailed process where you have to answer all the questions. You have to sign treaties. You have to get under scrutiny of the expert of the IOC. And in the end, if everything is fulfilled, the IOC Executive Board of Directors, they make a proposal to the IOC General Assembly, and they will vote probably only for one candidate. Hopefully, Medabat. Okay, so you might think, okay, the continuous dialogue is not really important. It's just a warming up for the targeted discussion where the decisions are really taken. No, it's not. It's much more. And just some things which are, in my view, very important for the rules of the conduct of the continuous dialogue. From now on, you are not allowed to invite people from the IOC. You are not allowed to even invite or pay for the people from the IOC Host Commission. You cannot give any presents or gifts to those people visiting you. You are even obliged to name all the consultants which you use to the IOC. Those people who attended my discussion about corruption know why. There was an applicant who paid to a consulting firm which was belonging to the son of a very influential IOC member. Officially, consulting fees, but in the truth, maybe a bit corruptive. Yeah? So the IOC knows what went wrong in the past. And so also no international federation can ask or request any advantage. If they do so, you should report to the IOC. If you don't report, you will get into troubles. Yeah? And the IOC, by the way, also knows that even the media is somewhere corrupt. Yeah? It came up in my presentation of corruption as well. But so be aware, you are even not allowed to invite international media, not to invite them and to pay for them. Okay, so it is restricting you a bit. But is it now the process which is guaranteed for the rest of the time of the application? So let's say the next 2, 3, 4 years, no one knows. No, it's not. Because the new president, Kirsty Coventry, said she wants to change at least 2 things. Or what she did is she invited 2 committees. And the first committee will review the process for electing future summer and winter games. So there is also with that decision process, which I think I liked. I said that I liked. There is a discussion. For example, the IOC members, they don't like to come to the IOC General Assembly and to have just the decision for one city. They like to decide between 2 cities, so that could be changed again. And there are other issues where some people in the IOC think it would be worthwhile to check it and maybe to reform it again. And then the second one is, and it's a bit self-reporting, you know, Miss Coventry wants to make sure to protecting the female category, whatever that means. I'm not native native in English, but I think the sense is clear. So every applicant, also India, has to make sure that female have to be included in all parts of the process. Otherwise, you will have a critical question from the IOC president, okay? So, as I mentioned in one of the slides beforehand, the IOC is checking several things: the socio-economic context, the political context, and then also the infrastructure, etc., etc. So indeed, if you have a close look to which criteria they want to know from the applicants, there are the very same criteria as in the earlier bid process. So the bid process itself has changed, but the criteria on which the bidding or the decision on the bidding is decided are the very same. I don't see any change. So it might be worth to look to an econometric, to a statistical analysis for the games from 1992 to 2020. Here's the source. It has been done by Mr. Vierhaus and me, which, with a complicated statistical analysis, I think we had 400 determinants, all the determinants which had been answered in questions in the IOC questionnaire, all the criteria which had been tested in former academic studies, and also some other determinants which are in the press regarded as important in the decision process. So in the end, we found quite a dozen of important determinants, and I want to go through with you those to these significant determinants. So first of all, IOC obviously favors larger markets like India. They like countries with a higher medium-term growth like India. They like countries who do not have a dispute with the IOC. In the truth, if you go to the analysis why Chicago dropped out in the first round, there was a dispute between the Olympic Committee of the United States and the IOC on the division of income, of marketing incomes in the United States. They didn't agree, and that was the answer. Okay, no agreement, dispute, no Olympic Games. So I think for you it's obvious not to have any disputes with the IOC. And then also they favor Olympic bids that follow a political liberalization. Please have also a notice to the determinant which is below the last one, which is in yellow, support of the city population. After many, many manipulations and attempts, we found out that the determinant having a support in the population of at least 67% is one of the most important decisive determinant whether you get the Olympic Games or whether you don't get it. So let us go through to the other determinants. First of all, and I try to visualize these determinants because many of the determinants don't have a linear influence but a non-linear influence. For example, cities, the IOC likes cities with more than 2.5 million inhabitants. No problem from Ahmedabad, yeah? They like countries with a sufficient number of existing stadiums or in the relevant region. We just discussed the possibility of employing a larger region in India for the Olympic venues. Then they like countries which didn't have the games for a longer time. Well, India never had it, so it's a very strong argument to give it to India. And lastly, countries which recently organized the World Cup, or let me say maybe World Cup is a proxy which recently organized international sport events in their country, an important determinant. Okay, there's also the one thing about political liberalization. So how is political liberalization measured? There are several measurements. In my empirical studies, we normally take the so-called VDEM. It's a published index of democratization. And you do see that India is performing quite well among the relevant competitors. It's after South Africa, okay, but I told you about South Africa, you are in position number 2. So I think this is in favor. Then here, to prove that you have to have a support of at least 67%, these are the supports in the IOC polls. So you can make as many polls as you want. The IOC, in a moment which you don't know, with an agency which you don't know, will have a public poll and ask your population about the support. And when the result of this IOC-driven poll is not that you have at least 67%, you will not get the games. There's one example which is very obvious. Tokyo applied for the 2016 games, and they had, in the face of being a candidate city, 56% of support. 56% is quite good, but they didn't get it. For the games of 2020, at least in the candidate city phase, they had 70%, and they got the games. And you do not see, here you see there's no single Olympic city or no single city which got the Olympic Games who had not had at least 67% of support. So the support in your population is of utmost importance for the success of your bid. And this is an innovation since the last year. I'm German, and I'm of course in favor of Olympic Games in Germany. It would fulfill my life, my dream of my life, if I would be games in Germany. But I were always very skeptical. Last year when I presented, I said, no, Germany is not going to do it. I changed my mind because something very strange happened in Germany. There was a public referendum, even not a poll, but an official referendum, secret voting. And we had a turnout of more than 40%, and 66.4% of the Bavarians voted in favor of Olympic Games in Munich and Bavaria. For me, that was a very positive shock, because in Germany, we have only one consensus, that we do not consent. I don't know any political question where we would have a majority of 66% in Germany. I wouldn't have any idea. If we have a majority, it's 51, maybe 52%. But in most cases, we even don't have any majority for any proposal. But here, 66.4%, that's a sensation. And have a closer look. It's a world record, yes, for the Winter Games. There was one in 1997 for the Winter Games in Sion. They had a support of 67%. So in the last 28 years, there was no single positive referenda which had a larger support. That is a world record. And especially because it's the only referendum with such a result for summer games. It's the only one. So I think the international family, which would like to be welcome wherever they come, they have heard it. They always thought Germany could organize it, Germany will be able to finance it, Germany will be able to market it, but they had doubts. And I think the doubts were justified. They had doubts whether the Germans love the Olympic Games. And with that referendum, things have changed. And Germany now is a very severe competitor, also to India. Not for 36. Again, we don't want the 36 games. Again, that's the truth. Yeah? So have a closer look here. There are very few referenda. In the last, this is a table which we produced some years ago, and we have updated right now. We did all the public referenda since Second World War. And I don't go through it, but this is the full list of positive referenda in the last 7 decades. Not too many, isn't it? The list of negative referenda is much longer. So it's not a problem of Germany, of being against Olympic Games. It's not a problem of saturated Europe. It's not a problem of maybe even the world. It was a problem of the Olympic family that obviously the way we wanted to be, as the games to be organized didn't fit to the wishes of the population. And the IOC reacted to that. And one of the reactions is the continuous dialogue, which you have been started right now. Okay, so let me have an interim summary. What are the decisive factors? Oh, I have a mistyping, sorry for that. First, large and urban population. Yes, you have it. Strong growth performance, you have it. No dispute with IOC, yes, you have it. The role of democracy and political freedom, yes, you have it. Large host city, of course. Not having had the Olympics for a longer time, yes. Having enough stadiums, I assume yes. This afternoon, I will be very keen to see the stadiums in Ahmedabad. Experience with international sport events, yes, you do have them, but please, go ahead. Have more. Apply for even more events. It will be a very efficient investment. And then large support by the population. Well, think about having a referendum. Not just polls, a real referendum. Think about it. Top the world record of Munich. Top it. That will be one of the toughest arguments against Munich and against other host city applicants. If you come up with a 70%, 75, 80% majority, for sure, the IOC cannot resist. It's another strong argument. Have a referendum. Okay, so now I want to come back to the IOC Future Host Commission and the background of the people who are members. Have a look. There are 3 members, Anita de France, Paul Tergert, and Sarah Walker, which had been excellent Olympic athletes, winning medals. So no doubt that they feel like athletes, that they have very strong connections to the Olympic Games. And have a look to the other members. They are all presidents of international sporting federations. So they are heavily connected to the international Olympic family and to the international sporting family. And so why do I stress it so much? Because if the IOC Future Host Commission comes to Ahmedabad, make sure that you have as many Indian members of the Olympic family with you as you can. You have seen my reaction when I learned that Gurdeep is here, an Olympic gold medal winner from the 80s. Yeah, I have trust in him. If I put him a question about Indian sports, he will answer me and I will say, yeah, I have trust. And it's the same with Olympians have trust to Olympians. Sport, presidents of international federations have trust to other international presidents of federations. So that's the way it works. Musicians have trust in musicians. It's always the same, you know. People like, of course, the commission wants to see the mayor, wants to see the prime minister, of course. But besides that, make sure that they are entombed by their friends. So make sure that you have all the Indian Olympic athletes with you at such results, okay? So how did other Olympic bidders do? For example, Olympic bid was run by Tony Estanguet, 3 times gold medal in canoeing. Outstanding athlete, you know. Every trust from the Olympics you can have. And Mr. Lapasset, chairman of the World Rugby Federation for 8 years. He had been known in the Olympic family. Yeah? And what did LA do? They have included in the LA bid committee Janet Evans, 4 times gold. Magic Johnson's Olympic gold in 1992. Yes, if the Olympic family comes to or when they went to LA, they met these people, well-known people, and they had trust. You know, and I had many experiences when I've been in German Olympic bids, when I met people from the evaluation committees. You have a different talk. If you talk from an Olympian to another Olympian, if you talk from a federal president to another federal president, there is enough trust. And so I urge you, I really urge you in your bid committee, include people like Gurdeep Singh and colleagues, as many as you can. Yeah? But also make sure that you have female members. I don't know whether you can do 50-50, but do as many as you can. It will be honored by the IOC and especially by the IOC president. Thomas Bach did a great deal in making a better situation for the women, but she will continue. So you will be pressed to have many female members of whatever you did. Maybe in your national teams, maybe in your bid committees, maybe in your organizer committees, whatever. Make sure you pay attention to that. So then there's another determinant which we couldn't test in our empirical studies, and that's I would call it the host city, the home advantage. It is well known that a nation or an Olympic committee which is organizing Olympic Games is having a home advantage, which leads to, depending on the situation, 30% more medals, in some cases even more. So for example, because that graph is a little bit difficult to understand, Brazil had 1% of the medals in Athens 2004. And then they got in 2009, and they applied several times also in the case of Brazil, and they knew that they had a good chance. They had a program for the athletes, and they grew up, and in Brazil themselves, they had 1.9, so they doubled, more or less they doubled the medal share. And what is really interesting, it started way before the Olympic Games, and what we are happy about it, that even after the Rio Games, they continued with their success. Yes, the Olympic athletes, they like that there are more Brazilians now who win medals. It's not that we envy them. No, we think it's good, and we think it's good if more Indians win medals. So another case is, of course, France. France did very well. They had a share of, may I say, 4% of the medals, which is a great performance. But in the Olympics of Paris, they went up to 6.16% medal share, which was 64 medals, an increase by 30%. Okay? So they really made use of the home advantage. And we have to see what happens in LA, whether they will be able to bring it over and to make it a sustainable success for the French athletes. Okay? So we hope for a lasting success for the Indian athletes, but it doesn't come from alone. So it's a tough work. And we had here many presentations of outstanding colleagues and experts who try to elaborate what makes people successful, what makes athletes successful, what can India do for having more success in medals and athletes. And I listened with very many attention, because if I knew, I would be so happy, because I could inform the German Federation, and I could inform my rowing federation. I'm the honorary president of the German Rowing Federation. I would be so happy if I knew, but it's really difficult. There is no consensus. I can underline and I can undersign everything they said, but I want to mention, before we come to this is the Indian medal share. So let's have a look to the blue line. Your medal share in Paris was 0.6%. Sorry, that's not enough. France has 70 million inhabitants. You have 20 times as many inhabitants, and your medal share is a tenth of France. You must change it. And we expect you to change it. If you don't make us believe that you will change it, you will have a hard time to get the Olympic Games. Not only because we think in sustainability, but also because we think in having a good atmosphere in the Olympics in India. We know that people are enthusiastic if their athletes win medals. Imagine you have Olympic Games in Ahmedabad and no Indian medals. The atmosphere would be a bit, nice. But to get the enthusiasm we saw in France, you need your home athletes to win a lot of medals. Most important. So you have to do something there. And we had the presentations of my friends and colleagues, and I can underline and assign everything, but I want to confront you with the way economists think about it from the very macro perspective. And the first work were by some colleagues, Bernhard and Busse, in 2004. They were the first to think about what are the macroeconomic determinants of the medal success of the countries in the Olympic Games. We did a similar study. We added some more determinants, for example, being an Olympic host nation. Bernhard and Busse didn't include, I don't know why. And also being the Olympic host nation in 4 years' time, because you saw that, for example, Brazil didn't have only the success in the Brazil Olympic Games, but also they started beforehand. So indeed, what is the interesting result? Of course, a larger GDP is positive for the expected medal share, because larger GDP and the thinking of economies means better technology, and sports now is about technology. Yeah? Larger population. Why? Because larger population means a larger pool of talents, and probably the talents is equally distributed all over the world. So with your larger population, you must have more talents, obvious. It's only that you have to train them in a decent way. Then being Olympic host nation in 4 years' time, yeah, important. So you will have a home advantage, but it doesn't come for free. You need additional programs for the athletes. And then there's one thing which might be a bit disappointing for you. Medal share lagged. So have a look to the coefficient. Nearly 80% of the variance of the medal share of the nations in the medal table of the Olympic Games can be explained by the position in the last Olympic Games. So obviously, experience makes a big deal in sports. You know, for example, in my sport, India, I'm sorry for that, and I hope it will change, is not a great rowing nation. You will have a hard time to win an 8 in the next Olympic Games, just because you don't have the experience with the coaches, the boats, etc., etc. Yeah? It needs time. You can do it. I'm sure you can do it, but it needs time. You will not be able to do it in the next Olympics. Yeah? 80% of the variance is explained by the medal variance of the last Olympic Games. It takes a lot of time to change the things. If you want to be successful in 36, you have to start now. You might be even a bit late. You cared about international sporting federations, but did you care the same amount about your athletes? Do you have high-performance systems? Do you have high-performance support system for your athletes? If you have so, make it clear to the Olympic family. Send them your programs. They will be happy to hear about your ideas, how to make sure that Indian athletes win a lot of medals at the Olympic Games in Ahmedabad in 1936. Okay, so how can you do? Now that's a remark which is outside my statistics, because I don't have the data internationally, and normally I don't like to make such personal remarks. I try to rely on hard economic and statistical data. But first of all, and that was missing a bit in the presentation of my friends and colleagues, I think talent scouting is of utmost importance. And you have so many talents. You have to find them. Yeah? So schools play a role, definitely, but maybe also clubs play a role. In Germany, we are very weak with talent scouting. It's a pure fortune that I went to rowing. If I would have went to soccer, like almost all young boys do, I probably wouldn't be here. I probably never would have been to the Olympics. It was just by good luck. Yeah? So, and then we have the second thing, which I think had been a bit undervalued. So I'm also teaching real estate economics, and in real estate, there's a word on the determinants of the value of real estate. There are 3 factors which determine the value of a real estate. Location, location, location. Okay? It's a bit a stupid word from the experts of real estate, but yeah. And drawing on that expertise, my personal experience is the success of an athlete, there are 3 determinants. Coach, coach, coach. So you can write every program you want. You can have wonderful PowerPoint presentations about your structure. If you do not make sure that you have the best coaches, and you might also look in an international scene, if you do not succeed to bring the best coaches into the position, you will not have the success with your athletes. Make sure you have the best coaches available. And then, now I'm at the position of the athlete, of the economist again. Yeah, economists always think in competition. You need a well-designed competition between your regions, between your federations, for the support of the state, for the athletes and for the coaches. If you don't have such a well-ordered competition, you will lose one of the most powerful instruments in getting a better performance. So here's an example, and it took me 25 years. So in the German Rowing Federation, I'm still a member of the board, I always pushed for some kinds of indication of how successful our 16 German states are in providing the national team with their talents. It's the first time. This slide is some 2 weeks old. And that slide shows you the number of athletes which each of the 16 states provided to our national team under 19, which is important because that's the future of our sport, in the years from 2021 to 2025. And for example, you see Bremen only 1, Saarland 0, Thüringen 0. Even North Rhine-Westphalia, which is applying for the games, only it's a huge one. It's the biggest country in our state, the biggest state in our country, only 49. But there's one astonishing country. Most of the Germans even don't know where it is. 37 athletes from Sachsen-Anhalt. And you know what happened when they presented it the first time, some 2 weeks ago? There were all the presidents of the regional rowing federations, and they saw it, and I saw what happened in their mind. Those which didn't have any athletes, or very few athletes, they were a bit... And the guy from Sachsen-Anhalt, he was like that. You know, at that stage, you even don't need incentives. You even don't have to have sanctions for the guys from Saarland, which didn't provide any athletes. It's just the information. Give the information, look what you succeeded. Look, you didn't succeed that much. It will inspire them and it will change their behavior. Make it transparent who is achieving what and who is not achieving. And you will have a better competition. Yeah? And then again, there's the role of IE, of course, Janus told us about, and make sure again to support female athletes. 50% of the medals in the Olympic Games are given to females. You will lose your medal chances if you don't provide females with the same attention as males. Okay, now the next thing is, which I couldn't test or maybe could have tested but didn't do for certain reasons, the doping. And there is, yes, you have seen it now, India has a doping problem. That is the official statistic table from the last report from WADA. It's the 2024 anti-doping statistic figures. And yeah, India had been tested, Indian athletes had been tested 7,113 times, and 3.6% of all samples had been so-called adverse analytical findings, AAF. This is a bad statistics. So you might ask me, what is a normal statistic? Well, it's answered by that slide. The Olympic sports now is coming down to 0.56% of positive adverse analytical findings. If you include non-Olympic sports, which by the way have a larger share of AAFs, and you have an overall, it's 0.8%. So I think in the first instance, your target is not more than 0.8%. Then you are on average. And you should be at least average. If you want to excel in an Olympic bid, you must ensure that there is no scandal in Ahmedabad in 2036. Imagine you have a wonderful athlete winning a gold medal. The people are cheering for him, and the next day there's the result that he had been doped. That's the worst which can happen to the athlete, to the federation, and to your country. So make sure you don't have a doping scandal. And make sure that you have to prepare for it. Even these developments take a lot of time. So your next target, and my advice would be 0.8. And then have a look to the Olympic sports. It's 0.56. That's the next step. And you want to be better than the average, isn't it? So less than 0.5. That's the target for India from my international perspective. So India has a problem, I said. Nah, I were wrong. It's not that the Indian athletes are cheaters. Indian hockey, 0 AAFs. Indian cricket, 0 AAFs. The majority of all Indian sports federations have 0 AAF. It's the vast majority. It's only some few. Sorry. This is my way of transparency. Some few problematic federations which lead to an average, and this is the misleading information about averages, most of the federations in India are clean. And they suffer because some very few federations are not successful in fighting doping. Here is the statistics of the individual Indian federations, skating, wrestling, important sport for India, 7% adverse analytical findings. Awful, too much. Weightlifting, handball, basketball, athletics, judo. Okay? Don't say that, okay, yeah, but in weightlifting they are all doped. This is why I said I gave you the second column. So in the International Federation of Weightlifting, the average positive rate of AAF is 1.2%. Too large, I admit, but your quota is 7.0%. So if you bother the presidents of the Indian Wrestling Federation with these statistics, he will come up with, yeah, but in the other federations they do as well. Confront him with these statistics. It's not true. The other federations are much better. The other wrestling federations are much better. Okay, so indeed, and I was sometimes a bit suffering about the discussions here also about doping. It was always the athlete. The athlete is being tested. The athlete is being caught. The athlete is being sanctioned. And my view is, okay, but is it really the athlete's fault? I mean, look, have a look to the statistics. Skating, every fifth analytical analysis is positive. Is it the athletes or is it the milieu? Is it the structures? Is it the board of director of the relevant federation? Is it the president of the relevant federation? Who is responsible? I'm a former athlete. My question is not a question. It's the answer. I think it's the officials. So don't stop by sanctioning athletes. You have to sanction the right persons. You have to sanction those persons who are responsible for the disasters. And that's much more the board of directors in the Indian Wrestling Federation than the individual wrestling athlete from India. Yeah? I give you an example. In my World Rowing Association, we had a doping scandal some years ago with many athletes of the respective national team. So what did we do? We said, the World Rowing Association said to the relevant federation, okay, so else you exchange the complete board of director of your federation, the complete board of directors, you have to exchange it. Otherwise, you cannot participate anymore in our world championships. Officials like their positions, but in the end, they know if they don't step down, their athletes cannot go to the world championships anymore. So they stepped down. There was a new leadership in that rowing federation. And the rest of the officials in all over the world, they listened to the decision of the World Rowing Association. They knew when they have a problem with doping, the World Rowing Association will come to them and say, It's your fault. It's not the okay, if there's one positive testing, we don't mind. But if you have a significant problem, it's your responsibility. So please think about it. And I try to remember also to my economic analyzers, yes, you don't like us economists because we put everything into equations, but I stick to it. I think it is an important way of thinking in equations, and we acknowledge the value of education because it increases the moral values and it makes people shy to work against the moral values. Yes, education is important. And we also, of course, acknowledge the value of doping tests because they increase the probability that you will be detected when cheating. Yeah? And also, at the same time, it increases the direct cost of preparation of cheating when you have better tests. So we acknowledge all that. Economists are not against education. They are not against doping tests. We are in favor. But we tend to use more financial penalties because, in the truth, in most cases, the people, the athletes, and I dare to say, and the officials who are in charge of it, who are responsible, they do it because of financial interest. Their language is a monetary language. Good luck in trying to convince them with education. Maybe you have some success, maybe in the long run, but in the short run, you have to speak their language. You have to speak in monetary terms. They are monetarily oriented, so you need financial and monetary sanctions. Yes, you need to have penalties, and again, I would like to stress, please, India, think about a system of deferred payments. So, of course, support your athletes, but only so that they can prepare for the Olympics. And if you want to do a bit more for incentivizing it, okay, tell them we will add another fund into, let's say, some life pension funds. And if after 10 years after you end your career, so there's a time when the last blood doping probes are analyzed, the frozen doping probes are analyzed. If you are clean, you get the additional money. If you are not clean, you don't get it. So they have an incentive to keep clean all of their career. Again, widening the focus of sanctioning. Please sanction the coaches, sanction the officials, and sanctions even the federations, not only the athletes. I don't say don't sanction the athletes, but I say sanction those who are really in charge of it. Okay? So now the next thing is corruption. Indeed, corruption and the corruption perception in our empirical analysis never showed up. And many may say, yeah, because all the Olympic family is corrupt. I don't admit to that. I think that 99% of the Olympic family is clean. 99% of the athletes are not doping. That's only a minority. But corruption is obviously a subject, and well, this is the corruption perception of the World Bank. So in official statistics, India, okay, again, in second position. Qatar, for reasons I don't know, I didn't expect it, is doing better. But India, again, the blue line, is in a relatively good position to its competitors. And you did well. You even had a bill on the national sports governance. I am not aware of any nation in the world who has a bill. In Germany, we don't have a bill. It is a private and a voluntary agreement among sports federations. We have a governance code, of course, but it's not a bill. So you are more advanced than any other nation I know. So congratulations. That is really putting much force into the fight against corruption. Yeah? So congratulations to that. Give a note to the IOC Future Host Commission. Tell them what you did. Yeah? It will be acknowledged. Nevertheless, so you are in a certain lead, in my appreciation, you're on a certain lead, but you can do even better. So again, also corruption, like every delinquent behavior, is the result of a rational choice. A potential delinquent person is just weighing the benefits of being successfully delinquent, that's this term here, the first line, against the cost in case you are detected and you are sanctioned. And if the net benefit is positives must be larger than the losses from reputation or from your moral values. So again, the same economic analysis is financial penalties are important. Again, deferred payment might be important. Job rotation might be important. Limits of terms of essence. And again, please widening the focus. Don't only sanction the one person who was caught by corruption. If there is corruption in a decent degree in a certain federation, think about sanctioning the whole federation, not just individuals. And the last thing, I presented that in my presentation on corruption. We have a World Anti-Doping Agency with good success. What we do not have, and it's a proposal by the Greens of Germany, having a World Anti-Corruption Agency. Think about it. It could be an Indian initiative. I'm sure the International Olympic family will listen to it. They will find it interesting. And the Greens of Germany will be ready. They will be fine in cooperating with you. And then also, that was one of the results of my presentation about corruption, think about private initiatives. Don't always wait for the state. Don't always wait for the International Olympic family. Don't always wait for the IOC. Think about what you personally can do. You're a student. You graduate. You could think about a web page where you publish which federations in India are doing well with 0 IAFs and which federations are not doing well. It's an easy task, and it will help, be sure. Yeah? Okay, WADA private initiatives. Okay, then there's something else. You will be asked for economic analysis. You will be asked about what will the Olympic Games do to your economy. Every nation is asked for. Also in the World Cup, they are asked for, and there are consultants which take a lot of money from you and calculating, and all the calculations come up with incredible positive effects on your GDP, on your employment, on your tax revenues. And in many cases, the result is, oh, this mega sport event is financing itself. Because, yes, you have some investment costs, you have some public costs, but there's a lot of private investments, there are a lot of people coming to your host nation, and they are spending money, and the income will be taxed. So in the end, you don't have to spend any public money. That's the normal way the studies are working. That's always like that, ex ante. That is what they suggest. If you do afterwards empirical studies, you never see it in the official data. Never. Here's a result of a bachelor thesis at my chair. I asked the student to every morning get up and count the number of flights which arrived to the 3 international airports in South Africa during the World Cup and also beforehand. And what you do see is there's hardly any additional flights arriving to South Africa. 8 additional flights. Not more. So you can put as many persons into the 8 additional flights as you can. You will not be able to calculate a significant boost for the South African economy. And indeed, if you do other statistics about South Africa, this is another case. Here's London. London, that are the people who are coming from overseas, that's the dark line. You have to compare the Olympic quarter in 2012 to the September quarter of 2011. And if you have a close look, I would be happy to, or you can check the website. London in the Olympic quarter had 300,000 tourists less, not more, less. They suffered from the Olympics. Less tourists. There was crowding out. Normal tourists didn't come. And by the way, there's another effect, we call it the carnival effect or runaways, because many Londoners expected much noise, crime, etc., so they went away. They didn't spend money in London, they spent it in Mallorca or somewhere else. So in the end, it's quite obvious that there's no additional income from the people in having such Olympics. You can do it with some simple time series, as I've depicted them right now, but you can have complicated econometric statistical analysis, and I tried to contribute as much as I could. And this literature reference list is a bit biased because I learned that here in such presentations, it's a place also to make some advertisement, okay? So it's a biased list. There are many other people who did that. It's tons of evidence, and I think Bardi, my colleagues from the United States, Bardi and Matheson are right. They conclude, in most cases, the Olympics are a money-losing proposition for host cities. No, you do not earn the money. You shouldn't apply for the Olympics because you want to earn the money. Then you should apply for a factory of chips, or you should apply for a factory of batteries, or something like that, but not for the Olympics. You are not making a money. Well, okay, there's a caveat. All these studies, because all the Olympics, almost all Olympics took place in saturated economies like the United States, like Germany, there might be a different outcome in an economy like India, but it's not proven. Yeah? Up to now, we don't have a proof for such a thing. So there's another important interim summary. The Olympic Games themselves, they do not generate a financial incentive. They do not generate additional income. It's not only true during the 16 days of the Olympic Games, it's also true for the uprun in the investment phase. You do not have significant effects. But you do have something different. And I mentioned it. You might use the Olympic Games as a tool to integrate more women into your sports. You might use it as a tool to fight doping in your sports system. You might use it as a tool to fight corruption, not only in your sport, maybe in your nation. So these might be the most important thing. And again, these things take a long time. So citing a very famous politician, I would say, it's not the Olympics themselves. It's not about the 16 days. It's the journey which might be the reward. It's the way up to the Olympics and the changes you can achieve in your country which might be the real award. One last and concluding remark on economic terms. So the cost overruns. So you see the blue column is always what's expected. That were the ex-ante calculation of what's the cost. For example, here in Barcelona, some 2-point-something million euros. And the red column is what it costed ex post, so what was the real fact. And what you see is we have heavy cost overruns. The cost overrun margin goes down, but it's still too large. Paris was indeed quite good with the cost overruns, but it's one case, and you have to make sure that your headlines are not biased against the games because of cost overruns. To do so, there's one thing. In the past, the Olympic family or the Olympic applicant cities, they always thought we can use the Olympic Games as a tool for urban regeneration. Indeed, I call it the Barcelona syndrome, because Barcelona and the Catalans, they were discriminated by Franco, the authoritarian president of Spain beforehand, and then after Spain got free country, they had more support. They got a lot of investment in their infrastructure, and now Barcelona is one of the most attended cities in Europe, a very attractive city. So many people, I dare to say that many people, of course Ahmedabad is an exemption, but many other city fathers and state presidents in the world do not apply for the Olympics because they want to have the best athletes in their town for 16 days. But they apply, the city fathers apply because they want to get into a position where they can blackmail their state president for some billions of subsidies for the urban structure. That's the real intention for many Olympic applicant cities, not for Ahmedabad, but for many of them. And they misused the Olympic Games as an urban regeneration program. And as you know, urban regeneration is one of the most costly things you can have. So it was a blame for the Olympics. There are cost overruns, it's getting too expensive, but it was not the Olympics. It was the misuse of the Olympics as a tool of urban regeneration, which of course caused then a lot of resistance by people, and this is also one of the reasons why people, also in Germany, don't like the Olympics. In my home city, Berlin, we will never get 60% of support because the people think, it's only about rich men, they're all corrupt, and they cost us our money. You know, that's the belief of most of the Berliner. Okay, so let me come to a conclusion and some messages and an outlook. So first of all, it's my true belief India is a dominant favorite for hosting the games, so else in 36 or in 40 and 44. Be aware that this continuous dialogue is not about 36. It's about 36 to 44. Second, again, I dare to repeat, the journey is a reward. It's not about the games itself. It's the way to the games. So I know that you're very keen to get the games for 36, but maybe you should question it time by time. Maybe the real assets which you can gain by the Olympic Games, fight against doping, fight against corruption, more female participation, they need time. And maybe you have more profits if you organize the games also at a later time than 36. I don't know. You have to answer it to yourself. Third, please prove the support of your population by a referendum. If you come up with a new world record of support of the Summer Olympic Games, that's one of the most important arguments for the Olympic family. Yeah? Make sure to integrate Olympians and members of the Olympic family, so presidents and vice presidents of international federations into your bidding committee, because the Olympians want to meet Olympians. It's very easy. Make sure to have a decent female participation. Be aware you have a female IOC president. She will have a look of what you are doing. She will have a look of the number of female representatives in your bid committee. Be sure. And if you don't have any, if she comes to your place and there's only one woman, one alibi woman, not good. You need more. Otherwise, she will not support your bid. Okay? Make sure that you have a program which makes the Olympic family believe that it is a good program, that your athletes win more medals. We are not against more Indian medals. Believe it or not, the Olympic family is in favor of more Indian athletes winning medals because we know the support for the Olympic sports is depending on the support in such nations as your nation, the largest nation in the world. So you need to have success in the Olympic sports. If there's no success, the support will be much less. So we need convincing programs by India how you will make sure that your medal tally will be much better than up to now. Then, avoid doping and corruption scandals by all means. I will not go into point number 6. I think I referred quite a bit to it. Be innovative. You are in the fight against corruption. I think you are in the lead. Worldwide, India now is in the lead with a bill. I don't know any other nation which has a bill. You have a bill. That's a very strong tool. Yeah, but don't stop there. Go ahead and be innovative. You are a creative nation. Confront the international family with new ideas. I discussed with you an Indian World